Hi everybody, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please consider thumbing up the video, subscribing to the channel, joining the Patreon if you can, but most importantly, just leave a comment down below talking about the game or the video or whatever you like in question. We'll get on with the review in just a second, but first, a quick word from the sponsor of this video. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
And on this occasion, thank you to KIENDA for sponsoring me with a copy of Akropolis, which is what I'm looking at here, from Gigamite Games, I hope that's how you pronounce it, or Hachette Board Games. So this turned up at the UK Games Expo this year, and it got a decent amount of buzz, even, I think, getting nominated or even won an award. I'll double check that and put it in the video for you. But this one I didn't notice because I didn't go to UK Games Expo this year because of my brother's wedding. So I never really found out anything about this until I went to Manicon recently, a local convention. And somebody brought it along. We needed a filler game and I never heard of it. Didn't even realise it was at the expo at that time. And at first I was really turned off by it because title and cover. The cover's not bad. I mean, the cover is nice artwork, but Akropolis with this whole, oh, you're building a city in this particular time period. Like, we haven't seen that done a million times.
Whippy!
This was a game that wasn't exactly singing itself to me when I looked at it from an exterior perspective. But I'll try any game once, so I figured let's give it a shot and see what happens. So in Akropolis, you are very simply building up a city district in front of you. You'll have a starting tile, everybody will have this, and essentially what happens is you have a bunch of face-down stacks of these very thick, very nicely produced tiles, which dictate kind of like a game timer in a sense. A bunch of them are laid out in a row. I'll see if we get that. There we go. Nice little row there. And the idea is that, much in the same vein as something like Small World or Majesty for the Realm or Lord knows how many other games that have used this mechanic, you essentially decide which of the ones that you're going to have. The first one is free, the subsequent ones cost an X amount of stone. So 1 stone, 2 stone, 3 stone, 4 stone. And you pay it back to the reserve, you take which tile it is you need, and you plonk it somewhere on your district, providing it's touching a side, whatever. As you go through the game, you're no doubt going to make your district bigger, but the idea is that you are trying to sort of score points by getting 5 different colour districts arranged in such a way that they will score you a decent amount of points. Once you've got a sort of bottom layer done, you can eventually, if I get some more tiles, build on top of those in kind of like a double layer, and if you're really masterful with this building malarkey, then you could even manage to get a second layer, although that's kind of like an extreme version. Chances are you'll probably just have 1 layer on top of that. But by the end of the game, which is when all the tiles are used up, you score for the districts in various different ways. So you have a very good reference guide here that tells you literally how many of each tile is there, how many of each plaza is in the game, what they all do, what quarries do. This is about as comprehensive a reference guide as you can get. It's even got the variants on the other side for if you want to make the game harder. I mean, this is a really good card, but essentially, blue will score for the biggest group of blues, yellow want to be isolated, red want to be on the edge of the map, purple want to be fully surrounded by other things, and green are they're just straight up points. But the crux of this is that it's not just simply about having a lot of the district colours in your city. You also need to grab plazas. You won't be able to see it on the camera view, but essentially some of them are going to have stars on them. These don't count towards the actual condition for the colour, so a blue with stars on it isn't one of the ones in the big group, but the stars are a multiplier for the points. So let's say my biggest group of blues is 8. Mixed across all the levels, because if you build on higher levels, they're worth more points. But let's say I've got 8 blues that meet the condition. If I've got 1 star, that means I only get 8 points. 2, 16. 3, 24. 4, 32. 5, 40, and so on. So you're trying to balance out having a lot that meet the condition with having the plazas in the first place to score a decent amount of points with it. You could put all your eggs in one basket and just score ridiculous amounts for 1 or 2 particular colours. You could try and spread out all of them, but that's essentially up to you. The quarries, which are the grey ones, are your way of getting stone back. So normally you spend your stone to the reserve, whereas in most of these games you put them on the tiles, and then when you take the tile you get the stone back. It doesn't happen here. Here you have to build on that second layer, and the more grey spaces you cover up, the more stone you get back. Neat little twist. I mean, we've seen that whole put it out on the tile and then when you take the card you get it back, that kind of thing. It's nice to actually see something a little bit more like different here. That actually requires you to plan ahead if you want stone. But that's essentially the whole game. You go through the stacks, you build up your city, and you switch the turn order around as it goes, and then you get to the end and then you score. Job done. This game, for a big plus point, is very simple to play and pretty quick. It says 25 minutes on the box. That's not that unrealistic, particularly if you're only playing this with 2 players. 4 players, you're still probably only looking at about half an hour to 45 minutes. Absolute tops. I mean 45 minutes with 4 players, one of which has got AP and including the rules teach. If this game takes you any longer than 45 minutes, something's gone horrendously wrong. This actually, I think, does come close, borderline to fitting that filler category for the list that I did before. So it's definitely like scoring points on there. And as I mentioned, the rules are simple. I mean, the rulebook may look big, but it's very large font, and a lot of it is pictorial representation and, you know, setup diagrams. There really isn't actually a lot of text in this book to read, so you can get going within about 5 minutes of reading this thing. If you want to make it difficult, then read the variants on the back, which basically impose a way of doubling your score for each color should you meet the other condition. But yeah, dead simple, dead easy, dead quick. Very, very good. Even component-wise is pretty good, actually. These tiles are very thick. This game's not expensive. It's less than £30. In fact, I dare say... No, I don't think it's less than 20, but it's definitely in the 20s, like the early 20s, I believe. And for tiles this thick and this quantity, pretty good going component-wise. Granted, the artwork is pretty basic. I mean, you literally... They've got thematic reasons for what they're called. I mean, what they call houses, markets, barracks, temples, and gardens. Good luck trying to decipher that when you look down on these things. Yeah, it basically just is a very generic picture with the colour on it. That's kind of it. And so I actually don't really recommend this for colourblind people because there's very little here to easily differentiate between the colour districts. Yes, there is a different diagram there, but are you really going to be staring hard down at your thing like this with your eyes this close? Trying to decipher whether the house has got this blue thing with a dome on it and the yellow has a couple of tents in the background or something. It's like, not really. Not a recommendation for colour blindness. I think they could have maybe added an extra symbol, something very clear that differentiates them to make it a bit easier. But yeah, colourblind people, I suggest stay away from this. But good compared, even the insert's pretty sweet actually. The insert gives you this kind of crisscross section of plastic cardboard, like the trench thing. Normally we chuck these away without even a second thought, but these carefully organise the tiles into 8 separate places. Doesn't matter which go in which, you can do what you like. Stone can go in the middle along with the cards and the score pad. And did I mention the score pad is fantastic? This is probably one of the best score pads I've seen in a game. And yeah, why are you gushing over a score pad, Luke?
I admire its purity.
Not kidding. This thing is carefully laid out per district to basically have you write down number of plazas, the stars that you've got, with the number of tiles that meet the condition, and then you simply do a little multiplication for each one, and you can write this all down on the score pad as you go along. Even if your mental arithmetic is not particularly good, this score pad will get you through. Seriously, other games need to take note of this score pad and use it because it was brilliant. I mean, yeah, okay, it's a score pad, Luke, big whoop. You'd be surprised how much games can sour the mood a little bit when you get to the end and you realise, oh wait, I know, score up, hang on, get your calculator app out. I mean, for Referral that I talked about recently, love the game. I've had to print out and laminate a score sheet for it because there's annoyingly not one in the game and it has 5-6 different ways that you can score. It needed the score sheet, but I digress. So we're talking very good from a production and usability standpoint. But is the gameplay any fun? Yeah. Yes and no. There is some flaws, but mostly this is positive. The gameplay, as I say, is very simple, and there is a lot of tense, like, oh, where am I going to put this tile? Should I put it here? Well, if I do that, I can set myself up with 3 quarries that I need to cover up later, but then what tile am I going to put on the top layer? Because ideally I want it to be something I'm scoring well for. Where's there a yellow? Well, there's a yellow there, right? There's a yellow, there's a yellow, there's a yellow. Yeah, look at all these yellows that I've got that are isolated. Oh wait, I've only got 1 or 2 stars. Yeah, I've got 8 yellows and I've only got 2 stars. It's only 16 points. Where's the plazas? How many are left? 4? Oh, great. And you're getting them as well. How am I going to get any more plazas? There's a decent amount of tension and sort of forward planning you need to do with your district. At the start, it's a little bit random. I mean, you basically just go, oh, here's a tile, plonk. It's as good as any, really. But as you go through the game, you start being a little bit more strategic about where you are going to put your tiles. Again, not super brain-burny, but you can't just bolt it onto any bit of the city you like and expect it to do well for you. You do at least need to think about what you're doing, particularly with some of the ones like the red ones being on the edges and the purple ones needing to be surrounded. You need to get them in the right place. Where this game does falter a little bit though is how the tiles are selected in the first place. You may end up with no stone at all during the whole game, or you may end up with so much that it's completely worthless to you apart from just being a point for each cube at the end. And it really does depend on how often you need to use the stone. If you have no stone, you're screwed.
Well, we're boned.
You will only be able to take the first tile, maybe the second one in front of you, and it's really not going to be a good choice for you for the most part. So you really need to have some stone, but then there's a limit to how much you need. But what is a bit of a problem is the turn order sequence. You have a marker in here that basically dictates turn order. And all you do is pass this along every time you finish up a stack. You use up as many as it needs for one tile to be left in the row, and then you take another stack and you refill the row. Then this moves to the next player. The problem is though, this results in a lot of occasions, and I mean a lot, where the reason you lost the game was because the turn order screwed you over. Because I think, right, I need green plazas. I've got a few greens, I need green plazas. And every time a green plaza appears out of the stacks, because they are randomized entirely at the start of the game, the green plaza just happens to be miles ahead on the track. You can't afford to spend 5 stone to get it, and oh look, because I'm going first, I can't get it. But so-and-so next to me is going last, and therefore is also collecting the greens to an extent, so naturally, he takes the green tile. I have no way to combat this. I don't know when the colours and plazas are going to come out. In fact, the game I played literally just last night had me suffer terribly, because I was getting good conditions for like the yellows and the greens and the reds and that, but every time I wanted a plaza, never got revealed. Every time I went first, never got revealed. I had more stone than this, and yet I couldn't spend it to do anything useful, because every time it was my turn, there was nothing of any use to take. And that kind of sours the mood a little bit. You know, you are going to have to accept that this is one of those games where luck of the draw is a bit of a pain. Now, you might argue, well, isn't that the same in other games that do this? Yes, but I would argue that in certain other games like Majesty for the Realm, there's not usually a rubbish choice. Something you take is going to be semi-useful. It may not be as good as others, but you feel like it was still worth taking it. Here, though, there are times where you take a tile and it literally is useless to you.
Oh, yes! I hate this!
Taking those tiles repeatedly isn't particularly fun, or very fulfilling, shall we say. So you may just get screwed over in an aspect, and that is a little bit of a concern. However, that is mainly the only concern. Is this a game that I'm going to want to play over and over again? No, it's kind of like I've played it once, I'm good. Next game night, maybe we'll bring it out as a filler, maybe something else in the next game night. Oh, you know what, let's play Akropolis again. You know, it does the job of being a very quick filler that even kids could get into, really. Well, kids. I mean, it says 8+. Yeah, 8-year-olds should be able to understand this game without too much trouble. They might need a little bit of hand with how the things score and the idea that you need the stars to multiply the various point conditions. Although, to be fair, I've come across grown adults who struggled with understanding the concept of a multiplier. That's kind of worrying, I think.
Throw yourself in next time and rid us of your stupidity.
With this one, it's not a difficult game. You know, your family weight, easily gateway level. Definitely gateway level. I don't think this is a next step up or anything like that. There's barely any rules in the game. All you got to do is just get used to how things score, and then you're sorted. But even then, even if you're not fully aware of how you're doing scoring-wise, you can still play the game. It's that simple. So overall, Akropolis is a surprise, actually. You know, one of the better games of 2022 I've actually played. Granted, that's not setting a huge bar, because 2022 hasn't exactly given us much yet, but still, I was surprised by this because I look at the box and I just think, that cover, that name, I'm gonna browse right past this box on any shelf. Yeah, it's colourful, but then I see the word Akropolis. There's 2 other games on Board Game Geek called Akropolis, and I'll just think, whatever. It looks like a cheap indie game, not that interested. But I'm glad to have actually stuck to it. I'm glad to have actually played it, and I can recommend this as a decent filler. You know, not an amazing filler. I think that, you know, even with the variants, I wouldn't use the variants unless you're playing this with gamers, frankly, because I think it's just a little bit too much forward planning, but for a simple filler, it does the job nicely and is probably more geared towards gateway gamers than anybody else. But yeah, that luck of the draw aspect does kind of make it feel a little bit on rails, and that is a big downer because I feel like I want to have a little bit more control over my choices, and a lot of the times you can just get stuffed with nothing of particular interest. But that's the main blemish. So all in all, I give this a recommendation of a 7 out of 10, seal of endorsement, and I think it's definitely worth considering. It's a very cheap game, cheap price point, and it will serve you well as a decent filler. Just maybe not like an all-time great filler. But yeah, still a solid game, and as a props to production, the graphic design, minus the colorblind thing, that is a little bit of an issue, and just the fact that they kind of thought about things like the score pad and a decent reference aid and making it easy to learn. You know, they put effort into those bits which are important for a game that is meant to be aimed at gateway gamers. So, you know, kudos where it's credit where it's due. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then consider thumbing up the video, subscribing to the channel, and possibly the Patreon if you can help it. There's already Patreons down below, as you can see. But of course, leave a comment on the video. Did you see this at UK Games Expo? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was like a great game to go for? Is this your go-to filler now? What do you think about my thoughts about the title, the cover, or the fact that the luck of the draw aspect? You know, I want to hear your thoughts. Get them in the comments below. Until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including my recent top 10 filler games that I mentioned. It won't be on that list because I didn't play it in time, but you can check out 10 other filler games. Or you can check out my recent retrospective look at 2021. Did it improve over time? You'll have to wait and see. Take care, and remember as always, whatever you're building in your city, it's still only a game. Bye for now.